Yeah, so I think I have to point out some stuff. Being a guy who spent 5 years taking philosophy, just got to point out a couple things. I just came, all these videos about Dave are coming out. I don't watch any of them, hardly, except for it's amazing when I type in Dave Wilcock how all these people are trying to leech off of him. That's grifting. I've never seen one thing David has done that is indicative of grifting, and you can email me and we can talk about this. I would love to go into detail, but I'm not going to, bore people with going on and on about that. So I'm just going to, David Pinchbeck or something, I came across something where this guy, they'll put someone who seems like he has authority and they'll say New York Times bestseller, or they might, something like that. And that automatically, makes it seem like this person has some kind of authority to talk about David. So I watched 5 minutes of this video. I'm going to watch the whole thing. And he starts recapping David's career, calling him a false prophet, new ager, fooling people into believing wild ideas. And I think he even goes, he's similar to the Nazis or something. He shows a quick clip of, Nazis. And then he holds up a couple of his books, and in the background, it looks like he has a bookshelf with just his books on it. And so he starts recapping Dave's career, okay? And he has these bullet points that are completely exaggerated and presented in a way that's no different than guys on Hidden in Plain Sight. This guy might have some academic background, but he's still doing a variation of an ad hominem attack on Dave. Now, these guys, here's something really interesting. I went to this guy's website, all right, this Pinchbeck guy, and he, right when you scroll down, he starts talking about Rudolf Steiner and how he's doing there's some kind of like Steiner event. Wait a minute, hold on a second. Steiner, I'm a huge Steiner fan. I mean, like that's he's like the basis for a realistic way of approaching esoteric or mystery practices, esoteric material. And the first Steiner book I read was the one where he breaks down all the different dimensions of angelic entities that goes way further than anything David has ever said. I mean, this was a video that's got a bunch of views by a guy that's saying he's an authority. And then when I clicked on his profile, he's wearing a sizzle jacket. And, I'm going, okay. And so he starts talking, and so he's obviously a fan of Rudolf Steiner. Okay, so Rudolf Steiner believes in the exact same thing that Wilcox does about different dimensions. It's like 6 to 7 different main dimensions. There's actually infinite dimensions, but this is where it becomes complex on both sides. Let's make it easy. Let's keep it at 7. And all these different spirit beings that occupy them. Steiner goes into detail. I mean, I've got like a whole shelf of Steiner material, okay? I know his work. And it becomes extremely repetitious, but I think it's repetitious in a good way, because it's mantra-esque, as any spiritual work should be, repetitious. And Steiner believes in like nature spirits and undis and things. I mean, I forget all the different classifications, but Steiner believes that there's like gnomes living in metal and entities that we can't see, and so do I. And but which goes a little further than Dave, because I've never actually heard him speaking in detail about all of these different entities like Steiner does. And to go even further, he then criticizes. I actually wrote this down. Wilcox for the idea that there was a civilization on a nearby planet that became extinct, and he also tosses in the super far-fetched idea that the moon was lassoed from another galaxy or brought in by extraterrestrials, and there's bases on the moon. Look, David has never said any of this stuff was for certain. He always says, my insiders will tell me this, my insiders will tell me that. And if you read his first book, The Source Field, he just presents all these ideas to get people thinking outside of the box and get them thinking about mystical ideas. And he's never said for certain this stuff's going to happen. And if you look at Graham Hancock's review, or not review, but his words that he has at the front of the Ascension Mysteries book, right on the front cover, he says, a leading researcher. You know, that's what he is. He just, or a leading thinker. That's all David is a thinker about certain subjects that have had certain lines of evidence attached to them, whether they're word of mouth or whether a lot of people claim to have seen things like light body activation. And so one of the big things that Steiner believes in when he talks about other dimensions is he uses planets like Venus phase, Saturn phase, that talks about these planets and beings that live on them. But if you don't know how to read his material, just like almost everyone I've seen misinterpret Dave's material, it's not literal. Just like how Dave, when he talks about biblical stuff, is not literal. But he doesn't point it out because the esoteric researchers are supposed to already know that. So when Steiner talks about things happening on Saturn and Jupiter and Moon and things like that, he's talking about dimensions that are folded, like a folded dimension. Like we could look at Jupiter and then there's another Jupiter. I mean, and so I just want to point this out. This David Pinchbeck guy, or who's just drilled in to Wilcox on this like 20-minute thing he did, he's an advocate for Steiner. Steiner's just as far out as Wilcox, except for Steiner was dead before 1925. I think he died in 1925. So there wasn't enough ways for him to propagate these ideas. I mean, I could barely even get through one of the, the Steiner one that talks about the different dimensions. It's like reading the Nag Hammadi texts. So this, and then let's continue on. He gives like 8 bullet points about David's career. It has nothing to do with the main things David focuses on. And he then, I think the first thing he does is he mentions the interest in the race of giants, which Graham Hancock and any legitimate researcher in that field has covered it, Freddie Silva. And these guys have pointed out that there has been evidence of these large humans that have been found, and all of a sudden they disappear and they get taken away. And then he compares Dave to other people that are charlatans to some degree, like David Icke. As entertaining as David Icke can be at some times, he makes unforgivable mistakes by saying that the snake symbol means reptilians, when that's a basic symbol that's covered throughout all sacred sites, which just means energy. It can mean male or female energy. The serpent snakes have nothing to do with a species of reptilians, which do exist, by the way. I've seen them through devices. I mean, there's all kinds of entities that look like that. And so, once again, this guy who's supposed to be some legitimate, source, fallacy after fallacy after fallacy, not one of his bullet points are relevant to his core argument. I'm getting sick of this. There's another guy that claims to be a philosopher paying respects to Dave, and he can't even form a basic argument. That's the first thing you learn in Intro to Philosophy, is forming a sound argument. None of these guys are doing it. None of these critics.